was absolutely pure chance, and I remember the second day we were here, we went off for a walk and we walked up the path towards the barn, past the barn, down to the left, turned to the right, and there was Seaford Head, the Seven Sisters. And I just couldn't believe it. It just took my breath away. And yes, certainly there is a journey. So when I start off, I'm not sure what I'm going to find. But I normally go there when there's so much going on, you know, there's so much in my head and I just need some clearance and I need to connect with my creativity again. So I will go and I'll take my sketchbook, I'll go on my bike and off I go. And I never know what's going to inspire me. You know, it could be just an old barn that's got, you know, marks, shapes, old cracks in it, and I'll draw them, and all of a sudden I'm looking at my drawings and there's a letter. My name's Sally Mae Joseph. I am a calligrapher, illuminator, and lettering artist. I guess this started for me when I was about the age of 11. I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was, but I did have a love of writing. I had a love of making marks, even at that age. And I can remember at my primary school going and doing a handwriting competition. I can still remember that sort of feeling of sitting there, moving the pen on the paper. It was just something I'd always connected with. And the other thing I loved doing at that time was painting by numbers. I don't know if you remember those. I think they still have them actually. And sitting there and painting horses and dogs by numbers. And that really, for me, I feel, is something that is still very much part of me. And it still is where I come from when I'm writing and painting. And then I'll just carry on, I'll just be looking at everything around me. And sensing everything, feeling everything, taking it all in. You know, it could be a flock of sheep just coming by, you know, you just don't know. And from that, you know, you get inspired. You think, God, you know, nature, you know, here we are. You know, we like sheep. I think the thing of water has always been with me. And there's something that when I moved to Seaford, it came back. It was something that I had missed for a long time, hadn't realised it. So although Seaford isn't the river, it's a bigger river, and the river comes in at the Cookmere, and that's a very special place for me. And the first time I came down here, I actually did a vellum for a rescue service that happened just off the coast here when a whole load of wood was thrown onto the beaches. And that day, or the day after, I went down there and collected some of this wood, and the service that had come about to save this ship, I did on the vellum the next day. So it was a fabulous connection. Did work for the Royal National Lifeboat Institute. Again, that was very traditional work. It was calligraphy, lettering, written with a quill on vellum with painted heraldry at the top. And I'm still doing that, which is a huge privilege, especially living by the sea. I mean, that is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. First of all, did you know how lettering started?
No.
Well, we're talking about 5,500 years ago at least. Man wanted to record things. He wanted to make a record of a transaction between two people, maybe a couple of cows for a couple of sheep. So he picked up some mud, he picked up something, and he made like a little pat. And then he took a wedge-shaped piece of stick and he made marks in that. And that represented 3 cows or something like that. And then he gave it to the other person. So writing was to record things. And then gradually, that's the Sumerians started that, all that time ago. And then from there, we get the hieroglyphics, we get the Egyptians making those wonderful, we all know and recognise hieroglyphics as a way of recording things again. And then from there the Greeks came along and they simplified some of those marks, some of those mark making that the Egyptian had done. And they became different shapes, different marks, different things. And then after that the Romans came along. And this is, we're talking about 2,500 years ago. And they developed the Roman alphabet that we use in the Western world today. I needed to do something, so I enrolled in a drawing class because I knew that was something I was connected to. So I took myself to this drawing class, and it was this wonderful teacher who inspired me to really kind of look at old objects. And the particular thing I was interested in was Egyptian artifacts. I actually love it when I find some good quality feathers, gull feathers or smaller bird feathers. But generally I will use goose feathers, feathers from a goose, and they come from the flight wings, the first 3 feathers from the flight wing. They have to be hardened, so they go into hot sand, and that hardens the quill enough for me to cut it. I'm now going to shape the nib by taking a slither off the side, and then the final cut to sharpen the end, and that way, and then down like that, and there you have your quill feather ready for writing. When I'm writing out something like a poem or a formal piece of work, then I do need to warm up. I have a little practice to start off with, and then it does need a lot of concentration, so I won't have the radio on, everything will be quiet, and I will focus on the words and focus on what I'm doing. Well, after I had that experience in the British Museum, I came back and I spoke to a friend of mine who'd been to art school and sort of explained what had happened. And actually, I didn't even know the word calligraphy then. I had no idea what calligraphy was. So she said, oh, you know, that's calligraphy, you want to learn calligraphy. So I then enrolled for an evening class, local evening class, in calligraphy, with a wonderful man who taught at the local technical college. And he taught me letters, he taught me the alphabets, he taught me colour, he taught me about gold. And in a very short space of time, I realised there was a much bigger world out there. The ink I use is a Sumi Chinese stick ink, which is a very specialist ink. It's not the sort of thing you can go and buy at the local newsagents or art shop. It's a specialist ink. And I actually buy it in a bottle, so I buy it already made up, ready to go. I found out that there was a degree course up in London that I could attend. I had 3 young children, how was I going to do that? But I managed, I made sure it happened, and I went up to college part-time at Roehampton Institute, where I studied calligraphy, bookbinding and heraldry. And that was a renaissance. It opened my life, it made me see the world in a much bigger place, because I was introduced to things I'd never seen before. You know, I was introduced to not only people who did lettering, people like Donald Jackson, who was a great name at that time, but I started looking at art. Generally, I'll use a very good quality handmade or mass-produced paper with a very smooth surface. It has to be like hot pressed to get a very fine formal writing. If I want to do things more expressive, I'll use a handmade paper that's got texture to it. Very often I am lucky enough to be commissioned to write on vellum, which is a calf skin. In medieval times, which is where our calligraphy tradition comes from, the scribe would do all the writing first. So the writing was done first, and he would leave the spaces for the illuminations, which would be with gold and with colour. So when I put a piece of gold on my work, it just brings it to life. It gives it a different kind of value to people. People will look at it in a way and think, wow, that's gold. Gilding is really another of my passions. I just adore it. And to work with such a precious material that comes alive when you burnish it, it just speaks to you. I went back to teaching, which is one of my loves, and it still is. I absolutely adore teaching. I have a passion for it, and I feel responsible to help teach the next generation of calligraphers. And that whole thing of the S shape I first saw, and then I picked up a feather and I was sort of making marks with it, and the S came out again. You know, you've got sea, you've got sand, you've got sun, you've got smells, you've got, you know, the seagulls, you've got everything around you. And all of a sudden, my name is Sally. And all of a sudden this S came out, and it's S. And singing as well. I love singing. I sing in a choir. Being creative and being an artist, being somebody who wants to not be like a sheep. Having that feeling that holds you.